Hello everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about The Cure and their new album, Songs of a Lost World. By the way, I know I said I would have a ranking before this album came out, however, after I made my Night Terror video by Dream Theater, I got very busy. It will be delivered, however, some things will change, such as this album getting included, and also instead of going in order, I'm just going to do the general album placements, okay? Alright, now on to the video. Alright, Songs of a Lost World by The Cure. Now, my opinion on this album has barely changed from when I mentioned the live performance of it when I briefly talked about it on my review for the single alone. Even though 3 out of the 8 tracks did change from the track list, I still wasn't completely invested in this album. For the positive side, there were things that had potential had they been more refined and finalized. For example, And Nothing Is Forever was a solid direction, however in typical Cure fashion, it was just a little too long. Other things such as Drone No Drone had a very good idea in the intro, especially with the guitar tone, however it fell flat on its face when the bass kicked in. Which leads me to one of the worst parts of this album, and it is the fucking production. Now, I don't mind shitty production or incredibly well done production. I believe that production can be used to express the art that you're going for. For example, Cannibal Corpse's Butchered at Birth. Objectively, the production is fucking awful, but it serves the songs really fucking well because of those gruesome and heavy riffs. Or it could realistically go the other way around. Let's say an album like The Astonishing. Objectively, the production is really good. It's very squeaky clean. However, the songwriting is really boring and the album is really fucking terrible. The production on this album, though, was god fucking awful, even from an objective standpoint. I don't know how you would be able to enjoy it. And the thing that really pisses me off the most from the production is that in almost every fucking song, Simon is going extremely over the top with a distorted bass. The next thing about this album's production that really makes me mad is the drums. Now, I've never had a problem with Jason Cooper as a drummer. I know there's people that do. I think he's fine, I guess, especially for The Cure. I mean, I really do like the way his kit sounds on, well, Mood Swings. That album actually does have pretty decent production. However, on this fucking album, if you listen to Alone, like I mentioned before, or All I Ever Am, listen to these toms. They have zero fucking dynamic range. And you could actually compare this to Close Down off of Disintegration because both songs have drum intros with toms like this. And the next thing when it comes to the production is the guitars, because I don't get why they're so drowned in the mix. I can barely hear the riffs. I don't know if it's just me, but it just doesn't really work well because it doesn't feel like a shoegaze record where everything has a huge sound and therefore you can justify riffs being drowned out. Then we go to the keys, and the keys are very disappointing because the patches, they sound stock. It sounds like they barely changed anything. And the atmosphere of the keys sound weirdly fake as well. Because, I mean, if you listen to End Song, or Alone for that matter, if you don't plan on listening to this album, and Alone is the first track and it sums up the problems with this album, you know, it doesn't sound natural. It doesn't sound like Sinking or The Funeral Party or Plain Song for that matter, which Alone tries to copy off of. And I want to mention The Funeral Party again, because this album does have a very emotional edge that it tries to achieve. I personally don't feel it because The Cure's discography, after some point, it feels like they are forcing emotion and trying to inject a lot of sappiness to it, and I'm not a huge fan of that. However, I do believe a lot of emotion was brought naturally for this, even though I personally don't feel it because I can't connect to it. The reason why there is a lot of emotion is because of the unfortunate passing of Robert Smith's brother, and that is something I won't criticize. I would be a fucking asshole if I do that. Like, come on, it's his personal life, and if he wants to put it into music, that is totally fine. If you connect to it, that's totally fine, but I personally just don't. That's why I feel like The Funeral Party does it really well, because of the huge atmosphere and emotion and the simplicity of it when it comes to somebody that you know tragically passing away. And for other songs that do that really well would be something like Dream Theater's A Change of Seasons, Alice in Chains' Wood, and Metallica's To Live Is To Die, just as some examples. And my last point basically is that this album is the perfect example of it doesn't matter how much time you have, whether it's minimal time or all the time in the world, what really matters is how much of a good songwriter you are. This album had zero excuse to wait this long and underdeliver, because if we're going to talk about The Cure, hell, again, we could talk about the old era because they released an album every year from 1979 to 1984, and yes, I'm including Japanese Whispers there for 1983. The Banshees made an album every year from 1978 to 1982, which by the way, they had zero Metallica material going into making A Kiss in the Dream House. They wrote the whole damn thing in the studio. The Smiths released all 4 albums in 4 years. The Police almost released an album every year, only skipping 1 year, and that was 1982. But the most shocking of all, to me personally, is not just because of the year gap, but Dream Theater not only released Train of Thought a year after 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, they also wrote the damn thing in 3 fucking weeks. See what I mean? It is just unfortunate seeing these artists wash up and think that they still got it in them when they clearly don't. It's safe to say that The Cure should hang up their jerseys and call it a day. I give this album a 4 out of 10. Again, if you want to stick around, I will have a ranking out soon, but that is it for today. I'll see you all in the next video.